There we go. We up.
Welcome back.
What's up, John Lohn, Amy Bilquist? How you doing?
Good, guys. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. How are you doing?
Good, good. Doing very good. Thanks for being here. Nate, have you got anything to start off the show for us?
Was I supposed to have something?
No.
Okay, good, because I don't.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. John, I was telling you I was reading a piece on Swimming World about Amy Bilquist and her retirement, and we were going to talk about her today, and I just thought to myself, well, instead of me and you talking about her, why doesn't she come on here and talk about herself? So we have a special guest, Amy Bilquist, here to talk about her decision to ultimately retire from the sport of swimming. Amy, how you doing?
Doing well, Brett. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So talk to us about your decision real quick.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I feel like this is kind of a long time coming for me. I have been injured pretty almost consecutively for like the past 8 years, and everyone has seemed to progressively getting worse and worse. So with this latest injury, I actually in May dislocated my sternoclavicular joint, which is where your collarbone meets your sternum. And I was like refusing to see doctors at the time because I knew I really hurt myself, but I just didn't want to get the kind of result before trials. So I swam through the pain, which eventually turned in from like chest pain to numbness and like almost a dead feeling down my arm. So whenever I was swimming and my arm would go overhead, so that happens a lot in backstroke and freestyle, my arm would just go completely numb and I couldn't really feel it in the water. So almost got to the point where that's probably the scariest injury I've ever had, when I was swimming and didn't know where my hand was just hoping and relying on muscle memory, and really going to a couple pretty great surgeons after the fact and really discussing my long-term health here. I decided that if I want to like lift up my kids when I'm older, if I want to continue being active, this is something I really need to think about deeper. And I, for once in my career, decided to put my long-term health in front of my dream. So I ended up retiring, which was a bittersweet moment for me, but I really think I was lucky in the fact that I retired still loving the sport and having an itch to get back into the water and swim in my life. I just can't keep swimming at the elite level I was, because it was just destroying my body.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed getting to know you and watching you swim, so it's bittersweet for all of us. I mean, I felt like there was so much more ahead of you for sure, but it's been fun to see your progression from age group swimming to college to professional, and so I feel like we got a good run at least of seeing you maximize the talent that you had. John, you got any questions for Amy?
Yeah, I got two come to mind. Amy, number one, just perseverance is something that obviously kind of defines your career. I mean, what do you say to athletes that are also dealing with a similar situation where you seem to have just a really good feel of how to handle all that? I mean, do you have any recommendations to people who are dealing with what you are?
Yeah, I would say definitely give yourself time to process things. Day one, I was never like, it's all going to be okay, I'm going to be fine by the end of the season. I really gave myself like almost a full week to just have those times where I was just pissed, where I was disappointed and all of that. And then eventually it comes time you can't wallow in that. You have to make a game plan. So I remember my senior year when I broke my foot at Cal, I was in the weight room more doing upper body because that's always been a weakness for me. So really, like, when I can't be in the water and I can't be doing what I want, figuring out ways outside of the pool to get better. And for me and my shoulder surgery in January, I was on the pool deck every day after my surgery, coaching people, looking at people's strokes, just because I felt like for me, that still helped me keep connected and keep, visualizing my stroke throughout that month I couldn't touch the water. Okay. So I would really say, as best as you can, give yourself time to process, but don't wallow in it too much. And whether it is working on weaknesses or visualization, really, really take advantage of those tools, because I think that's something that's really overlooked in injuries.
Got it. And Amy, on one other note, and I take you back a little bit here to your Carmel days. Mm-hmm. And even as the team now at Carmel High School is the most successful high school program that exists. And Amy has continued to use social media to buoy those kids who are there now and keeping the tradition. What is it about Carmel that has bonded that whole group and that has kept this dynasty going year after year?
I think it's kind of the mutual experience, and I think that bodes really well for Carmel. You know, I was there, what is that now, almost 6 years ago? Wow. And, you know, someone even like Drew, who was there 2 or 3 years after me, you know, he had that same experience. And I think that really speaks a lot to Carmel's consistency and why the program is so good. You know, I went through it 6 years ago, and someone going through it right now, we honestly probably have pretty similar experiences, because Chris expects excellence always and always has consistency throughout his program. You know, this day is this day is this. We're in the weight room here, here, and here. And I just think
Plum you're talking about.
Yeah, Chris Plum. Sorry. And so I think the consistency really leads for everyone. You know, I can really look back and be like, oh, this athlete's struggling right now. They reached out to me. This is what happened when I went through this. So I think the consistency of Carmel really brings us all together, no matter what time you went through it.
Got it. Thanks, Amy.
Well, I think we've just discovered here something here, Amy. There's no chance in hell that you're going to just disappear from the sport of swimming. I think you've got a future in the commentary box. I mean, you're super intelligent. We already knew that. You've got a good face for television. You're well-spoken. You understand the sport. So we've got to figure out a way that we can get you connected to swimming in the future. You're not going to disappear from us, all right?
No, I've actually had a couple coaching conversations already, and a couple offers. But for me, I think, and honestly, my mental health, I need to have a good clean break from swimming. I know I'm going to come back.
Right.
And probably in coaching, you know, I loved coaching, especially my time at Scottsdale. I had a lot of time to, you know, be on deck and work with kids and mentor kids. And to me, that was probably the most fulfilling thing to end my career on. And I know I'm going to come back. I just need like a year or a couple years to just get that clean break so I'm not bleeding over my wants and my desires in the sport onto other people. You know, I don't want to be projecting. I want that clean cut to be able to be the best coach I can be when I come back.
Right. Well, coaching is definitely an option, but I'm telling you, commentary, that's where you're headed, okay? Commentary. For sure.
Sounds good.
All right, you're going to stay with us. Speaking of commentary, we've got some topics here that we're going to get through. Nate's going to lead us through these things. Sometimes I jump in the middle of his leadership, so we're going to let him go.
That's okay.
And walk us through where we're going next, Nate.
Up next, the Paralympics start tomorrow.
Well,
our boy
they've started.
Today.
Yeah. Australians have already been winning gold medals. I've seen it.
Of course they have.
It's happening.
Jamal Hill is swimming.
Yep.
Who's been on the show a few times.
Yep.
We're going to tune into that. Did you know that finally that they're paying the Paralympians the same amount of money as the normal Olympians?
Yeah.
They just got a major pay raise from like $7,500 for a gold medal up to $37,500 for a gold medal. So some groundbreaking things happening at this year's Paralympics. There's over 1,200 hours of coverage. So a lot of eyeballs, a lot of advertising opportunities, a lot of sponsorship dollars coming through the Paralympics. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah. There are just some great stories too. Just some amazing stories that are shared by those Paralympians that they deserve this this big window of to see into their careers and what they go through. That's why I think I loved one of the Tier Pro Series events, and I forget where exactly it was. They invited Paralympic contenders to participate, and I think that's just a great way to grow para sports, para swimming especially.
Mm-hmm. Amy, do you have any association with any Paralympic swimmers?
Yeah, I actually know Lizzie Smith relatively well. She was a arena athlete as well, and she's just amazing. And I think I'm just so happy that they got this pay raise. They deserve it. She trained so hard. I remember we practiced like a year ago together, and she's just awesome. And I can't wait to watch her race. Yeah,
there'll be some great racing coming up. So I have to get on the schedule. Is it live on NBC? Nate, do you know? You're on mute. There we go.
We can put it in the links. We'll put it in the links so you can just like you did the normal ones. They have like a list of everything.
Awesome.
all the streams. And Jamal put out exactly when he's swimming. So if you want to follow along with Swim Uphill, Jamal Hill.
Yeah, I know Jessica Long pretty well too. She's got an incredible story. She's going for more golds. I mean, she's been at it for multiple Olympics now, so it's cool to see her back and leading the team out there as well for the US. All right, what's next?
Another retirement. Farewell to Japanese superstar Kosuki Aguino.
John, what's your thoughts here?
I think he's probably underappreciated. So much was made of Daya Seto heading into the Tokyo Olympics because Seto had prepped himself with some world titles and excellent performances going to Tokyo that Hagino was a little bit forgotten about. He also took a break from the sport to worry about his mental health. He was ahead of the curve on that one a little bit. But this is a guy who was the bronze medalist in the 400 IM in 2012, comes back and wins gold in 2016 in the 4 IM, and probably just doesn't get the credit he deserves. Also, just a world-class 200 freestyler, 200 backstroker, just a tremendous athlete, and the sport will miss him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Amy, do you know Kosuki at all?
I never met him, but I always appreciated, like, he does the hard events and he does them super well, and he does a lot of them consistently. So I thought that was really cool. And I also did think he was underappreciated going into this year's Olympics.
Yeah, in terms of the mental health situation that John talked about, it seems like that is becoming, much more of a topic amongst, top tier athletes these days. And I believe you've had some, opinions on this yourself, Amy. Is that right?
Yeah, I definitely think, when we look at athletes like, oh, they're injured and it's a very physical injury, you could see it, after my surgery, you can see a scar. I think with your mental health, you can't really see it and you have to be your biggest advocate. And sometimes that's extremely hard. And, with Simone Biles, there was a lot of judgment that came along with that. But I'm just super happy, that he was able to, take that break during his career and now know when to retire. And I think a lot of people need to just start listening to like how they actually feel. And if you want to be done, be done. Don't force yourself to do something that you don't really want to do anymore.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Nate?
One of the thoughts I had was, even though the ISL is here and FINA's coughing up some more money, and we all think that all these swimmers are going to continue their careers long into their 30s, I just don't think that's really the case. I mean, this guy's been training for the hardest events for over a decade. He's been on the scene. He's got to be sleepy. He's got to be a little bit burned out physically, mentally, the whole thing. So, it's I think we all want to see people continue, but for those distance swimmers especially, it's going to be harder to keep going well into your 30s, I think. But it's exciting for him. He's got a new kid. He's married. He's got a whole nother life ahead of him. It's not just all about swimming.
Yeah, I'm sure the pressure of what he just went through of a home Olympics is just such an impact on him as well. So I hope it's not a rash decision. He's only 27, I believe. So, he may reverse the decision later on, or he may stick with it. But, I'm sure he's satisfied right now with what he's done in his career. So it's good to see him make that decision for him. All right, moving on to super conferences. Yesterday, the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 kind of came together and officially said, yo, we're developing a super conference. So we just saw Oklahoma, Texas going into the SEC, making the SEC even more insane than it already is, especially on the swimming side. So now are we going to see Stanford and NC State and UVA and Ohio State and all these teams together under one giant conference? Swimming conference?
I could see them going with keeping the individual conference championship meets at the end of the season. I think a really neat thing would be a mid-season meet where you have the Pac-12, so you have your Cal and your Stanford, and then your ACC with Virginia, NC State, and your Big Ten programs. I mean, that would be a pretty cool winter meet, that little measuring stick that a lot of schools use to get their NCAA cuts. If they go the big conference where it would be 30 plus teams, that would be dynamic. But I'm just hoping right now for a little bit, I guess, and I think that would be a mid-season meet, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Amy, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's crazy to be honest. Like, to think about how tough it would be to make, even a B or C final at a mid-season meet, if those conferences are all together. I think it's good and bad personally. I think it affects swimming a little bit differently, and I like the idea of having your conference meet at the end of the season still, hold that traditional like Pac-12, ACC, all of that, keeping those separate, just because, to be honest, and having swam in the Pac-12, I think we had a super advantage, having like a small conference that was separated, like women went and then men went, because I think a lot of the conferences that had that combined meet, there's just so much hype when, a men's team is there and it's a bigger pool deck and more fans. So I think we had the advantage going into NCAAs because it was a build up for us and a build down for some people. So I just think it'll be interesting to see if that midseason went off like that, how those times would compare to NCAAs, because I almost feel in some cases it might be faster a little bit.
It's funny that you say that. Perspective is everything, isn't it? Everybody in the SEC would say, "Oh, we have the advantage. We have the best meet in the world. We've got the men and women combined. We respect each other and we support each other, and it's super fast and blah 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 and all that sort of stuff." And then to hear you say, "Well, we had the advantage," so I don't ultimately know who has an advantage in any situation, but I think a lot in the SEC is always made of the conference, and I always felt like there was too much made of it at times. And I don't know, this sounds like it's going to be another one of those situations where all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of weight put on the conference title, from athletic directors, let's say, to say, hey, you've got to win this, conference title, as opposed to it used to be just go out and win the national championship and that's everything. Whereas a lot of bonuses and a lot of, whatever it is going to be tied up into this conference title now, which will then ultimately take away from the national championship in some way. So, I kind of agree with you, John. If it's going to go like that, then it may have to go to kind of a winter mid-season rather than so close to the national championship. But is this something they're talking about next year, or like the SEC? From what I read, it sounded like it was like 4 or 5 years away.
I don't think. I mean, right now, when you look at the agreement that was made yesterday, there's no signed paperwork. They called it a gentleman's agreement, a handshake agreement. So I think there's a lot of steps that have to be covered still to figure out, when this even takes off and in what way. Yeah, the SEC one, Brett, you're right. That's not supposed to be, because there's television contracts with Texas and Oklahoma that have to get sorted out. And so I don't think we're looking at that until 2024, unless they're let out of the contract. And I couldn't imagine that's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with the NCAA. Things are changing so fast for them. All these athletes are starting to get paid, which is pretty exciting too. All right, here's the big one. ISL tomorrow.
Definitely starts tomorrow. Yeah.
Season 3. You just interviewed Rob Woodhouse, the general manager for the London Roar, who we will release at 12 noon today. So just a couple hours from now, you'll listen to the whole entire interview. But he dove into the ISL a ton, and he kind of talked about the London Roar swimmers, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. Hawke, it sounds like Adam Peaty might not be swimming at all.
Yeah, Adam Peaty's not going to swim at all. And look, I've heard a lot of people talk positively about the ISL, and I think for many good reasons. It was refreshing year one, even year two. But we're in year 3 now, and I think there's some frustrations being built up. I'm just going to jump to that straight away. Like, we all know the positives, and we can't keep just talking about those things. We finally have someone in a high power position, a GM, Rob Woodhouse of the London Roar, talking about the ISL in terms of where its challenges are, and not negatively, but being realistic on, like, okay, there's some issues here, and he's talking about those issues. So it's nice and it's refreshing, like I said, to have somebody in that position come out and say some things that we're all thinking, but no one's talking about openly and publicly. And here we are, Rob Woodhouse. He's going to, give out a lot of different details and spin on his take on season 3 of the ISL, which will come out at lunchtime today. So yeah, Amy, you've been part of it. I mean, it was obviously incredible. You can't take anything away from the racing. It was so different and so much fun. Do you have anything to add to what we already know about it?
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I'm sure Rob will address it, but I think payment is definitely an issue. I think there was buy-in from the first year or two of athletes being like, all right, we are willing to be paid late because we want this to go off. We want future generations to be able to have this. But at some point, where's the last straw on that front? So, and I'm sure Rob will address that as well.
Yeah, he does for sure. John, what's your opinion here?
Yeah, just from an organizational standpoint, and I don't mean an organization, the overall ISL, I mean from getting the little details right. Season 3 is not supposed to be season 1 where you're ironing out little problems. Season 2, you can accept a couple. We're about to start season 3, and an email just came out, no joke, less than an hour ago, announcing the television contract for the American rights, for the U.S. rights. That stuff should be in place. It shouldn't be a last hour thing that's getting sorted out, and that shows that it's not organized enough. It's not. They're kind of going day to day to figure out how to make some of this work.
Yeah, Nate. I mean, from the outside looking in, from someone who's a swim nerd, I mean, where are your frustrations with it?
Well, I mean, we've heard it from all the swimmers that payments obviously the biggest issue. I also just wish they would stick to swimming. I don't need to look at the precious gems or the precious metals or whatever the heck that they're trying to do. I think the guy literally went on there and said, we don't care about the names of the swimmers. We don't care about their times. This is the best way. No, it's not. No one wants to look at precious gems. I don't know what a ruby means. Just show me the person. Show me the swimmer. Tell me about the swimmer.
And Nate, people don't want to have to learn what the ruby and what the emerald are. Like you said, they want the athlete. Let's recognize the athlete and what they're doing, between the walls. And that's where it comes down to.
Yeah. And one of the things that frustrated me, and maybe with the we're going to talk about Sonny being in Naples and some backstories, but there's no backstories. I know Amy Bilquist, but nobody out there watching the ISL knows Amy Bilquist personally.
Exactly.
So she flashes up for 5 seconds. She does a swim, and then they cut straight off to something else. I'm like, I want to know who this woman is and her performance. I want to support her. I want to cheer for her. But it's just
tell the stories of
exactly. I think
story.
they're turning it every season, in my opinion, more and more into a video game. Where it's these characters, there's these gems, here's stats and all of this. And I think you're really right. And they're missing a huge opportunity to have these narratives of storytelling and connection, because people aren't going to watch because someone got a ruby. People are going to watch because they're buying into people's stories and buying into who they are.
Yeah.
And Brett, if I can, I mean, the one thing that we found at Swimming World, people want the personality features, or an in-depth feature of how somebody got somewhere. They can have somebody, prep that ahead of time in between races, play that profile. It doesn't have to be a 5-minute profile. It can be a 90-second piece where we learn a little bit more about the interest out of the pool, how they've overcome a certain injury, any hardship, or just, maybe they light up a room somehow. And that's what you want to find out. That's what people want. They want they want to know the personalities.
Yeah. And the other thing that Rob said was that he completely disagrees with the fact that the final is in January. I felt like he felt like that they were onto something last year where the season was kind of condensed, and then they had the playoffs real quick, and then the final, boom, and it felt like it went really well. He does not agree with the finals being in January, and he says if that's the case still, then none of the Australians will be competing in the finals. None of them. because the Australians have their trials in March, sorry, and then they'll have to go back after January and quarantine. So none of them are going to compete in the finals if they're in January. So that was a bit of a bomb that he dropped in this podcast later today too.
Yeah, it's all happening, right?
Yeah,
and it starts tomorrow. So we're still excited to watch some fast swimming. He did mention like Kyle Chalmers is going, Emma McKeon is competing. Like there are a bunch of Australians that didn't need a crazy enough break that they want to be out there. They want to be competing and racing. So there's definitely a lot to be excited about as we head into season 3 here. Moving forward, there's the World Cup is back. The FINA World Cup was just announced. So
just before we get off that real quick, Amy, did you end up getting all your payments from season 2 yet? Okay. There's a little, that's a no. So and that's from an athlete. I mean, again, and it's so hard for the athletes to come out and say these things because no one wants to be negative, but the reality is like not everybody has been paid from season 2. How can we start season 3 when you haven't paid for season 2? And here's the other thing. What is Matt Biondi doing? I mean, I got Matt Biondi hanging on my wall up there. I idolized this man from the moment I was a small child, and it hasn't changed necessarily. But Matt, what are you doing? Aren't you the head of an organization that's supposed to be fighting for the athletes? I mean, you put your hand up for the job. Fight for the athletes. Why am I on here talking about? Why does Amy have to embarrass herself in front of the world? Why isn't Matt Biondi on there fighting for the athletes? Matt, where are you? What are you doing? What's the organization called? The Alliance? I mean, you were forcing swimmers to sign this agreement to join an alliance, and you're heading it up. And what are you doing?
Yeah, it definitely feels like everyone's on one side, So the whole purpose and the backing of the ISL was because it was supposed to be for the athletes, by the athletes, for the athletes. And I mean, heck, it seems like they just cut the pay of every single swimmer in half, right? From $15,000, the solidarity payment went from $15,000 to $7,500. So now you're going to get half of zero, which is still zero, if my math is correct. So, I think it's important that people are talking about it because the athletes should get paid.
Yeah.
So anyways, okay. FINA World Cup, talking about getting paid. FINA's trying to get you paid in their World Cup series, which we've seen plenty of people do. Katinka, Teresa Alsheimer. So we have stops in Berlin, Germany, which some people say is the best stop in the whole circuit. People love going to Germany. They got the best techno music. They got some of the best crowds. That is consistent if you followed along with the World Cups for the last 15 years or so or whatever. Berlin is usually the stop of the
best
meet.
beer gardens. I know that.
Yep. We're in Budapest, Doha, and Kazan. So a lot of those, you see a lot of those same sites year after year. So yeah, there's 4 more stops. I guess, is anyone going to go from ISL to FINA World Cup to ISL again in November to ISL again in January? Is there someone that's going to be running around?
And World Short Course Championships in December.
That's right.
This schedule's just too packed. And this is where you also see the ISL and FINA being on opposite, ends of the spectrum here, where they're competing for a slot in the calendar, basically. And it doesn't work because the athletes are not going to be able. No athlete wants to overcommit himself or herself to something that is not going to benefit. I mean, you're going to have to get solid training blocks in too. So there's going to be decisions that have to be made, and the calendar is going to have to get thinned out at some point.
Yeah. Then you add the Australian league that they've just announced on top of that, and
right,
it's just like never ending for swimmers. It went from nothing where swimmers weren't getting paid to now it's like an abundance of money all over the world, and like there's too much of it. It's like a guy like Tom Shields, who could cash in quite literally
Big time.
But he's a married man, you know, like what is he not going to see his wife for 6 months just to go out and make a couple of $100,000? I don't know. It seems like a lot, but maybe his wife can travel with him. I don't know. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a lot of time on the road.
And then, other than that, we just got our boy Sonny in Naples. If you haven't been following Sonny the Swimsuit Guy, follow him on YouTube at Sonny the Swimsuit Guy. He's now one of the assistant coaches over there at Energy Standard. So he's posting a lot of vlogs. Usually he's on the live show with us. He's got some kooky times right now. He's super busy training all the athletes and jumping into season 3 here. But he is consistently putting out new vlogs. So he just put out his first one. I think there's another one coming out. So if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff, Sonny does a great job with that. So we just wanted to mention that before we run. Oh, you know what else we skipped over was Popovich.
Popovich,
you know, in our ISL conversation, didn't he sign?
He signed. Yeah, he's racing, and which is interesting because I don't know exactly. I've heard from people that if you sign with the ISL and you swim with them, you can't swim college. So is he just eliminating himself completely here? Have you heard anything, Amy, on that aspect?
No, I actually haven't. That's interesting, but I know. I mean, like Hoffer had to make the decision to ISL or NCAA season. So
Right.
I wonder if it's like an actual rule or if it's like a team rule, like you're choosing to leave the team, you don't get to come back. So
Because I wonder how the new NIL, the name, image, likeness rules, do they not factor into that at all? Because now where we're seeing some individuals have some opportunities with apparel companies, maybe it's different if you commit to a professional league.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've heard that if you did do the ISL, then you were done with college. But I could be.
I mean, it would make sense. Like you're not going to see a football player play in the NFL and then come back and play the college season. So I think they're trying to like parallel it to that potentially.
Yeah,
I think you might be right. But hey, it's a great question to ask David tomorrow.
well, it's today, but
I mean today.
I'll be on it today. Yeah, that's my little exclusive. I'm interviewing Popovich today, everybody, for the 7 people that are watching us right now. I think there's a few more. But listen, John, how's the book going? Quickly, where can we find it? How's it going?
The book is Below the Surface. You can get it on Amazon, and it's basically a comprehensive look at the history of the sport. And it's going well. Thanks.
Awesome. Congrats. Nate, you've got a copy of it. I know that. I got to get myself a copy, lazy son of a gun. Come on, man. Brett, get with the program. Where is it? You got it? Oh,
Thanks,
bro.
Nate.
It
Appreciate that.
I sure do. I have been looking through it. Brad, I don't see your name in here. Strange. Interesting. No, let me check the table of contents. No
Check
no
the
Brett
index.
Hawke under
Didn't you put a history of losers in there?
No Brett Hawke. You're the greatest swimmer.
Oh, well, we'll get there. Amy, appreciate this. You got to get to work. Thanks for doing this again. You guys are awesome. Just chatting swimming. So it's been fun. Thanks.
Yeah,
Nate.
thanks you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, everybody.